Welcome back, guys, to another video on the AJ Plays channel. And today we are bringing you the 2023 edition of what each MLW team should do in the offseason. And we're also pretty much looking at each team's biggest need. Like, this is what they need for the next season. And every team pretty much has a draft pick, except for the Gators in this draft. Doesn't mean the Gators still can't scout around. But, like, each team, you know what? As much as we could say each team is loaded now compared to, like, the talent level in, like, 2019, you could say that still there are teams that are lacking some certain like positions that got to figure out some stuff. Whether it's internally developing some guys or possibly going out and finding someone to bolster the order or the rotation. You know what? Each team has to do something in this offseason to ensure that they either get better, they maintain their championship status, they get to that championship status, or they at least make the playoffs again. So let's get right into it. We are going to start with the NL, and on that note, let's start with the champions of the 2022 season, the Downtown Diamondbacks. So these D-backs have just come off a World Series, right? And you could say, okay, they've won two straight championships. What more do they need to get better? And let's be dead honest, Jimmy Norp's arm is probably killing right now because like this guy had to drag his team to the playoffs, and even then, he pitched in every game. There was no second pitcher to help him out. The D-backs need to figure out the second pitcher. Like, we know Norp is a superstar. That's undisputable, and he's got the ace spot 100%. There are Heath and Shima there to join him in the lineup. Meanwhile, there are three guys right now worthy of being the second pitcher. Because last year, we thought it would be Heath, but he kind of regressed. And there's meanwhile Flood and Bennett. They're both knocking at the door, man. They both really showed that they have promise. They can do well in the league in their opportunities. And at this point, they got to figure it out. Whether it's Jonah Heath gets back on track, or they possibly give Trey Flood and Casey Bennett some time and they develop over the course of 2023, which I feel like they should do. They should dedicate a game where, they pitch, like one of them pitches two innings, the other one pitches another. They could possibly draft a more legitimate pitcher with their sixth overall pick. Because they have the sixth pick instead of the eighth, because they made that pick swap with the Mallards. W trade by Jimmy Norp in the end. But long story short, the Downtown Diamondbacks, they got to find that second pitcher, whether it's Jonah Heath returning to form, Flood and Bennett possibly, emerging as that second pitcher, or drafting somebody who can fill that role. They got to figure it out because Jimmy Norp's arm can only take so much. So we're moving right along now to the number two team in the NL last season. They finished in the NLCS. They got eliminated there. Moving right along to the Midwest Mallards. And this one I've said from the beginning, they have the first overall pick. Long story short, they need to find the number two pitcher to complement Jordan Robles and the number three hitter to go with Tommy and Robles in the lineup. Because let's be dead honest, Brendan Davenport, he can definitely develop, but each good wiffle ball team has two solid pitchers. Davenport has improved to us that he can be elite at that level that we need, that you would want your pitchers to be, right? You have that, and meanwhile, as for Caden Irwin, he's good in the lineup, but you know what? He's a little bit inconsistent, and he doesn't kind of lack some power. And let's just be honest. There are definitely better options out there than Caden Irwin right now to fill that spot in the lineup. So long story short, the Mallards can really use a boost on each side, and because Jordan Robles knows so many different guys from all kinds of wiffle ball leagues, tournaments across the Northeast America, Northeast United States, um, it shouldn't be that hard for Tommy and Jordan to easily find somebody who can be that number two guy behind Robles on the mound and then fill that third spot behind Tommy and Jordan in the lineup as these guys, complete one of the fastest rebuilds that we have ever seen in MLW. The Eagles are next up, and as for them, there is nothing wrong with adding hitting depth, and you know what, just adding to the young core that they already have. Because if you look at that team, Landon Urgaitis, Blade Walker, and Dallas Allen are all the really young guys. They're around, like, I think the oldest one is 17. They're around 15 to 17 years old at this point. Daniel is building a dynasty for the future, with the guys he's got. They have a very nice mix of Daniel Schultz and Waylon as veteran presence, as well as the youth. They have a really nice mix there. I really like the direction of the Eagles. Dallas Allen last year, he really emerged as a Cy Young candidate. He was an excellent pitcher, but he really has to take the step up because you know what? He started to get figured out toward the end of the season, especially by the Downtown Diamondbacks. He needs to be able to be consistent throughout the season, and just I'm not saying put up 0 runs all season. That's impossible to do. However, you know what? The wheels slowly started falling off. He started running out of gas, especially in the NLDS. And that's what pretty much got the Eagles eliminated, sadly. So Allen just needs to develop a little bit more, and the guy's in great physical shape now compared to the end of 2022. No offense, Allen, but you know what? You have come a long way, buddy. A long way. I'm really proud of you. Now, as for everybody else, I'm just adding to the young core. You know what? That's all they can really do with their draft pick. Keep going with those. Keep drafting the way Daniel has been drafting. Like his only bust was Max Tamonka, but like it is what it is. Still, overall, the Eagles they have a really solid young future ahead of them, bright young future. And at the same time, you know what? Develop Allen, add to your hitting core. The Eagles can still very well contend in 2023. They like the NL is so competitive in 2023. Now, as for the Gators, who I feel like could very well surprise some people in 2023, this team just overall they are the weakest in the NL, and this is mainly because they really don't have any reliable pitcher outside of Chris Cheatham, and that's their focus. As much as they don't have a draft pick and they traded that pick away, there's nothing stopping them from possibly getting any kind of like just scouting around. Zerlag and the guys all go to the tournaments. They can find somebody within Michigan who pitches really well that can come into MLW and really help the Gators in that game 2, maybe that game 3 situation as well. Because honestly, we give the Gators a lot of crap, but Cheatham last year dragged them to their wins. Cheatham did pretty solid on the mound. As for Jorgensen and Chadwick, you know what? They're not as elite as they used to be. I want Chadwick to go back to being elite. He's still my favorite player in the league, but that's besides the point. Now, as for the hitting, I feel like they have the depth. They have the hitting depth between Zerlag, who had an off year. I feel like he's going to come back. He's going to be better next season. Chadwick, who really did start heating up toward the end of the campaign. And then as for Cheatham and Jorgensen, they're both, they both did pretty solid toward the end as well. I feel like between the chemistry they have, the hitting will like emerge on its own. They just need to find that other pitcher to really propel these guys back into the playoff conversation. And we immediately move on to the Coastal Cobras, and here this is, for me, this was like the first one that I was easily able to come up with, and this is just fine the third bad, because in my opinion, the pitching is solid. The pitching they have on lockdown, like that is, it's Baranowski and Bien, and you're not touching that. Drew Davis at the plate has been consistent all year, getting on base, hitting home runs. He's the guy. He's your number one hitter. That's clear. Durand, sometime missing in action. And that's not good because I feel like in the World Series, if he was there, he could have done better than like what Sean Flynn did. And as for both Flynn and Bean, they are both very good hitters. But the thing is, they're very streaky guys. They are just so questionable. Some days you don't know what kind of Sawyer Bean or Sean Flynn you're gonna get. First off, adding hitting depth in the end, like there's nothing wrong with adding another hitter to your lineup. If the Cobras want to make a run to get back into the World Series, they really need that extra hitter because this year against Jimmy Norp, Bean and Flynn, my apologies, did not do too much in that World Series. It was all Drew Davis who was providing that offense. You need another hitter. They need that third hitter, the more consistent guy, to complement and round out that lineup and really push the Cobras to go back to the World Series. So, like, this shouldn't be offensive to the Preds, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to be offensive whatsoever, but, like, let's just make this clear. Preds, find a solid contact bat to add to your lineup. That does not go to Alma College, okay? Let's just make that clear, okay? Okay. Now, the thing with the Preds, they have the lineup mold that a lot of teams really do right now. They have the solid two-way star in Ryan Cratch, and then Warda and Russell are support at the plate, but the problem is their consistency, one, and two, they are very power-oriented hitters. Sure, Warda's speedy. He could turn anything into a base hit. However, there's nothing wrong with adding a solid contact bat to the lineup. And as for Mac Hawley, we got to just see more of him. Maybe he can be really good. Because last year, I personally thought, he did his job on the Preds. He got on base, and he drove in a few runs here and there. But as for guys like Warda and Russell, they seem to go it's yard or bust, like bomb or bust. That's what those guys are. They got to get a solid contact bat. They have the draft pick. They have number 5 overall, I believe. Go ahead, find a solid contact hitter that actually is like a more wiffle ball background, and I think that really rounds out their lineup and complements what they got going on right now. It'll really help them, and you know what? As I've been saying, there is nothing wrong with adding hitting depth in this league. Listen, and now for the Cats, any two-way support to their lineup would be huge, but let's be dead honest, the pitcher is what's needed. Because I personally feel like teams are starting to really figure out Nick Saylor. We saw in the ALDS what ended up happening. In the second inning, he let up 4 back-to-back home runs to Cratch, Warda, Russell, and Cratch again. And even Cratch didn't know what was going on. Like, I'm not going to put the screenshot here, but you guys got to remember that pick. Long story short, these guys just, Sailor's starting to get figured out, and last year Kyle wasn't that solid. Pearson, he could be something, but we really don't know that yet. You need to find a solid pitcher that can really elevate your team. Because I feel like the Wildcats are slowly starting to come back down to earth, and teams like the Cobras and Preds are starting to pass them in regards to talent. They really need to add to their pitching tandem, especially because I'm starting to feel like Sailor's not going to be the guy next year. I don't know how his no movement pitches are finally just now starting to get hits, but honestly, at the end of the day, Kyle's gonna be your ace. Nick Sailor might be your 2 option, and in the playoffs he might actually get some time as well. But you really need to go out and find a legitimate second pitcher to add, because you know what? If Nick Sailor starts getting figured out, Jackson Pearson, he's a good backup plan, but like not a great backup plan that's going to win you every football game. And to round it off, finally, you got my team, the Metro Magic. This is really the only team right now that is in desperate need of a legitimate two-way star. Because, honestly, on the mound, I feel like Trevor Bonhams, I've said it time and time again, he had a very underrated first half. He really held the Eagles, Cobras, and Preds down to the minimal runs, but the team just couldn't give him the run support appropriate enough to win the games. So, honestly, he's still a solid number 1 option. The Wildcats rocked him, but that's something he's got to figure out. He's still solid. As for the hitting, when your best hitter is Jordan Curdy, who's a good role player, he's good, but he's not a number 1 hitter. He's like a number 3, 4 hitter in any lineup on any other team. You go to the Cobras, the 3 hitter. You go to the Preds, probably the 4 hitter. Like Curdy, he's a good player, but he's not your number 1, because last year he was probably the best out of all of them. This time, you have the number 2 overall pick. I hear there's rumors of getting like a Jordan Robles kind of guy to come in here and be the two-way superstar that the Magic need to really succeed in 2023. I'd love that personally as a Magic fan. I'd love it. But this season, Metro Magic, they got to find someone to really just like get them back into relevance, honestly, because the Magic 2-13, come on guys. Like the Gators did that. The Gators did that in 2019. You got to be better than that Gators team. Seriously. This two-way star is so critical. If the Magic can get the two-way star that's similar to like Robles, then you know what? Somehow the Metro Magic are right back in contention, because we saw that they easily did it with the Midwest Mallards. We saw how Robles turned them around. Can this draft pick, if it's a two-way star like that, turn around the Magic? Time will tell, and we'll only see in 2023. On that note, guys, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you guys have any other suggestions of like what kind of off-season content I should do, like talking about each and every team, let me know down below in the comments. Thank you all so much for watching. I'm going to see you guys all next time. Peace out, y'all.